My wife says it all the time. She said, I just wish we could be content with the things that we have. Now, is she talking to me? No. Is she talking to herself in the mirror, our friends, our family members, our church members we go to services with, whatever? No, not exactly that. She just realizes that in general, the world will be a better place if all men everywhere could learn to be content with what they have. It's so important to be in that position. But is that usually where we are? No, I'll admit. Even though I take view of eternity, I'm looking forward to being at home with heaven, in heaven with God one day. There's still so many things in this life that I desire, that I want. I'm just like you. I watch the commercials. I watch the advertisements, and I want the latest phone or the latest this or that. I'm into electronics especially, and I'm always wanting something new, a little bit of an upgrade, a little bit of betterment of myself, so I think. But that's not where my focus really needs to be. And certainly if it's causing me to be discontent with what I have. You know, the Bible tells us we should be content in several different areas. I'm going to list 3 today. In the first place, we should be content with the place where we are. Now, that wasn't a play on words. It just happened that way. The place is the place. I'm mindful of what the Apostle Paul wrote in Philippians 4 and verse 11 when he said, not that I speak in respect of want, but I have found in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be, what's the word? Content. What do you mean by that, Paul? You're content in any state, as in you're fine being in Palestine or in Israel or in Judah or whatever? No. Well, I know what it is. Paul wishes he lived in America like I do. That way he could be a part of the sweet home of Alabama and never have to live in Tennessee or Georgia. No, not that either. The word state here in the Old King James means the condition or position, or in this case, I'll call it the place where it was. You see, when the Apostle Paul wrote these words, he was actually in prison. He was actually in a very difficult position. Perhaps he didn't have access to proper hygiene or food or clothing or shelter really like he had. He may have even been in a dungeon as he was in some other situations. But he found himself to be in that state, yet in spite of that, to be content. There's a lesson to be learned in that. Wherever you are, whatever you're dealing with, whatever your position, condition, or place is, you've got to find a way. I've got to find a way to somehow be content with that because it's the place where God placed me. Number 2, not only the place where we are, but also the possessions that we have. Again, it's the words of the Apostle Paul by inspiration that are penned in 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 8. Here's what he says. And having food and raiment, let us therefore be, what's the word? Content. What do you mean, Paul? Paul said, if I've got food, if I've got raiment, even if it be minimal food and minimal raiment, I can be content with that. And that's so important to be reminded of. You know, I live in America. I live in a place where even though I'm not necessarily considered wealthy by some standards, I read a statistic the other day that even with my income as low as it is, I'm probably within the top 1% of incomes throughout the whole of the world. So many people have more difficulty, more struggles just getting access to the basics in life than I ever will. But at the same time, I've got to be content with what I do have and not the things that I don't. This is reiterated over in the Hebrews letter. I don't know who the writer was. I would assume Paul, but that would be up to you to discuss. God inspired anyway. In Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 5, the scriptures read as this, let your conversation, that is your manner of life, let your conversation be without covetousness. Why? He said, and be content with the things such as you have, for he had said, that is God, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Here's a position where we are and our possessions are listed, and he says, be content with that. It doesn't matter what they are. Yes, some people by the standards of men may be rich, some may be poor. Some may be of that fading middle class or anywhere in between, but the truth is whatever God has provided us with, not that we don't work and strive to do better in life, but we just have to be content. And there we have again the Bible teaching that clearly. But not only concerning the place, concerning possessions, but the third and final place, concerning our position. This is what's most important. The Apostle Paul wrote by inspiration, 1 Timothy 6 and verse 6. So really, just 2 verses back of the page from 6:8 we read earlier. But he writes these words, but godliness with contentment, that is along beside of contentment, is great gain. Being godly, that within itself, and being content, being godly, that is great gain. That's the wonderful state of contentment we must be in. Yes, our place we must be content and satisfied with. Yes, our possessions we must be, in some senses, satisfied with. But most importantly, it must be the position where we are to which we're the most satisfied. I heard someone ask it this way, just to kind of flip the verse around. The verse said, again, reminding us, but godliness with contentment is great gain. They asked this simple question, are you content being godly? Is being godly enough if we didn't have the other things, if we were in a terrible place, had no real possessions in life, but we can just be godly? Would that be enough to make me content? It's a real serious yet sobering question, and it's the one that I must answer in my life every day. Please work with me and help me to be content with the things that I do have, especially if what I have is a godly life. Thank you so much for joining me today on the passage, and until next time, this is what the Bible says. Stay faithful, my friend.